Well, hell. Welcome back to Tech Travel and Twang. Well, hi there. Welcome back to Tech Travel and Twang. This is our Tuesday tea editions. I'm here with Kristen Cruz. Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Jen.
Happy Tuesday because Mondays suck.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this new segment we're doing.
I am too. I love the idea of dishing, kind of keeping it all in like a little, a format that makes sense for all the things we learn throughout the week. So I love the idea of doing a Tuesday tea. I think it's fun.
I love it. So, first question up is there actually tea in your mug?
Okay, so I do have like my magnesium water in here. It's kind of
Mhm.
like a tea, but it's a little bit more water than tea. This is probably the one healthy thing I do in the morning is like drink my magnesium. And I'm still working on it, so obviously it's not the doesn't taste the greatest, but magnesium is important for you if you didn't already know that.
I love it. I love it. And that kind of runs into our first segment of hospitality. And this week we want to talk about wellness and coming off of Mental Health Awareness Month, how wellness tourism is spiking. And I
Hmm.
know I know you've been on a journey of just getting healthier, which I commend and I try to follow. But I can tell you right now, this is Monster Energy drink in this cup.
That's so funny.
That's my first
Yeah,
confession.
I feel like I talk a big game when it comes to like health and things. Like I feel like I have a pretty good routine. Got my skincare regimen on point, I feel like, and
Well,
some of
that's
your
obvious.
but I think otherwise, yeah, I feel like coming off a mental health awareness month, I think we should all just check in with each other. Like, how is your mental health these, like coming off of the
Mhm.
month where it's like top of mind, like how are we doing? Is our
Yeah.
mental wellness in check? How are we feeling? I feel like this is beyond like just obviously there's a month to celebrate and all the accomplishments we've made and where wellness travel is going, but it's always good to check in, right?
It
Because we're
really is.
all the
And
time.
I love the pact that you and I made that we do for ourselves and also our team members, which is, no question asked, can't any more days. Like just text me in the morning, can't anymore, got you, get off, take care of yourself. And I
Hmm.
think those things are important because, we still have sick time and these sort of things. And I just think that's such an outdated concept. Sometimes you just don't know and you need that break, you need that mental health piece of it. So we try to be, and obviously we all work from home, so we try to be as flexible as possible because maybe you need to go take a walk at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and
Hmm.
that's totally cool.
It's totally cool. It's extremely important to be self-aware so you know when you need to step away. And that I think that's where this trend in the industry is happening is you find that there are more and more people that are willing to say, okay, I need to step away for a few days. I need to not just step away, but I need to go somewhere. I need to go somewhere to either disconnect, push the reset button, just unplug, or whatever that need is where you feel like you need to go reset mental health and like, kind of get back in tune with yourself. That's obviously showing in the trends, in the travel trends. And I think that's
Absolutely.
take advantage of that.
Travelers are growing just specifically for wellness tourism domestically too, which usually see a lot of that international, with retreats and so forth, but
Right.
domestically is growing at a almost a 13% growth driven rate year over year because there's so many reasons we could talk about societally, but like we're tired and we're burned out and we don't know when the next thing's going to change or the next shoe's going to drop or the next crisis
Right.
pops up. So
Right.
we're, travelers are taking control of that with wellness tourism.
And again, I think it's a lot more acceptable. Like there are more and more in leadership roles who are saying, take care of yourself.
I'm so glad you
Take
said
your
that.
time off. Yeah, like use your vacation days. Don't we're not trying to burn each other out, in terms of how we work together
Hmm.
and how we collaborate with each other. We all need each other to be well in order
Right.
our team to function the way that it should function. And so I think just collectively we're taking better care of each other in the workforce, especially with
Mhm.
remote work. So I think that it continues to show in the trends. And it also, I feel like the just wellness aspect in general, just outside of just traveling, just putting that time and that effort and that investment aside to do things consistently for yourself, whether that's investing in, you know, a certain brand of skincare that works really well for you, or getting that massage every few weeks, or whatever that is. I think people are willing, and it shows in the trends, they're willing to put more effort aside for it. And it's extremely important. And it's definitely, you feel it. Like when you work with people that take care of their mental health and they're very self aware of how that
Oh
affects,
yeah.
it makes a world of difference.
It's a really good point about it becoming more acceptable from a work and a business aspect. Like if you want your people, your team to be at peak performance, which we do, then it's
Hmm.
not the hustle and pressure environment anymore. It's not the 80s.
Right.
It's definitely a more holistic look, which I know we have been also experimenting in how moods matter in the tourism industry and, how we create spaces, for our colleagues that way too. So that's been super interesting to explore and to go down for us. But wellness tourism is definitely on the rise. I saw KLM just launched a travel well campaign, which means more luxury, but is also kind of that double entendre of how to travel. So people
Right.
are using it in their branding as well. Like it is really a growth market there.
Absolutely. And even in some of the stuff that Skift is putting out on some of the summer travel trends and just travel trends
Mhm.
for 2024 and beyond, the solo travel is on the rise, and how people are looking at taking, traveling by themselves, which is not your typical way of travel, but doing so that they can kind of they can focus on themselves, and they could also
Mhm.
meet people along the way that sort of enrich their relationships.
Yeah.
Um, and it's such a just it's fun. It's also scary. I don't think I've ever traveled outside of work. Like I've never actually taken like a trip just by myself to like leisurely go someplace. And I don't know if there are a lot of people like me who haven't really solo traveled, or if
I
there's a
think there are, but it's becoming like a bigger appetite because, especially with women, who have older children and are, suffering from that superwoman syndrome. I think that's where I've seen the trend really rising is, you know what, this season, and you have this on your Facebook, actually, this season is called me.
my turn.
My turn. There you go. My
Chapter of
turn.
life is called my turn. And I feel like too, when I am an official empty nester and we can just like do what, kind of make our schedule and do what we want,
Hmm.
you betcha I'm gonna be out there. I'm gonna be, like I told my kids, Mama's gonna be everywhere. Because it does feel like it's a
Absolutely.
lot easier to do and a lot less scary, I feel like, schedule wise, and that
Hmm.
sort of thing. But that's definitely, you're seeing that more and more in some of the research, is that uptick in solo travel,
Well, I think
which I
that
think
the solo travel is also, yeah, it just speaks to the mental health piece of that too. And, I look at this whole thing as you got to put your face mask on first before you help somebody else. So there is just because of other things that we can't control, that we can't, on an individual basis, have any effect on, like the economy, like the price of milk, like the price of gas, and I could go on and on. The things that we can control are ourselves and our mental state, and whatever happens between your ears is your own business. So I think people are going to where they can control things, which is also like a side benefit, kind of some lanyard of that mental health and
Mhm.
our mental health improving completely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with those personalized vacations too, also I noticed on Skift that rise, which applies to solo travel, but also smaller group travel. People
Mm.
aren't wanting to do the normal thing that, whatever's in the box or the pre-thought itineraries. They're hiring private drivers instead of, group tour in some cases. Or they're doing that on a small group basis as well, like bachelorette parties. Those things are really more personalized travel, I've noticed.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense too, because in a lot of ways, you're getting a way to get away from a structured schedule and having to be at a certain place by a certain time to do a certain
Mhm.
thing that ends at this time. And then, like structuring travel and not being able to be flexible and just, be spontaneous, it can feel not like a vacation. And so that makes a lot of sense that you'd want to have that flexibility and have a little bit more of your own schedule and just kind of go with the flow.
Mhm, mhm. I'm really encouraged to see that summer travel is going to hit, well, I hate to say the word pre-pandemic levels because we say this way too often, and
Right.
I'm kind of tired of that phrase by now, but actually summer travel looks bigger than ever. So I'm super excited for our destinations, but also our travelers in that aspect. And they're taking the travelers are telling us now what they want, just kind of like some of those things we hit on, but also there's sleepcations, there's coolcations, like
There's so
travelers love.
many vacations.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I love
Yeah,
the fact that, we've become kind of this buzzword, create your own word society where they tell us what the trend is and even give it a name and the whole
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. And it goes to show that travel is just one of those industries. It's just one of those areas where, the we could be just burning down around us, right? Just like things are just like happening on dumpster fires to the right, to the left, and we're still going to plan our travel. Okay, we're still going to put that money aside and go, look, I know groceries are more expensive this week, but we have got to get away. Like we
Yes.
have got to go somewhere. And so it's encouraging to see that a
Hmm.
lot of what else is happening, we're in an election year, economy, inflation, all of that continues to be a topic of mainstream media. And again, like we're all on the edge, right? We're all waiting to see what things might happen. But at the end of the day, we're still prioritizing, even if it's little spurts, even if it's 3 or 4 day weekends, a lot more consistently. We're getting away, we're making that time, we're spending
Hmm.
that money. And it goes to show that at the end of the day, travel is considered part of your mental health. It's considered part of your wellness journey. To get out, do new experiences, meet new people, and take care, just check that necessary box of just walking away from the stress of life, enjoying yourself for a little bit of time and coming back to it. So travels, we're gonna, it's just a good industry to be in when it comes to, we're gonna
It
prioritize
is.
that all the time.
It is. And I think we're more creative and more productive when we think that way, which is what I love that we've created with this little retreat and think tank for the industry. Quick little plug here because we've been thinking about this and kind of in the lab, in the kitchen, whatever you want to call it, developing like how do we, DMOs, we forget that this is, a very compressed position. There's a lot of extra things that have to happen all the time. It's a very stressful place to be. You don't just have one boss. You have your boards, you have your stakeholders, you have your residents. It's a never ending opinion fest. So, in these conferences, just continue to kind of regurgitate the same death by PowerPoint session that I see over here, that I see over there. We're like, what if we could create something that did mind, body, spirit, and tourism industry development? So more think tanky environment. That's going to be super exciting. I cannot wait.
No, and and thinking about what DMO leaders need. We've been in the industry for so long now. I felt like we've seen so many scenarios. We've seen
Hmm.
DMO leaders have to walk away from their position because it's the stresses and the amount of pressure was just not what they wanted, and
Yeah.
rightly so. There's an amount of pressure and amount of stress that you can take, and then there's that point where you're like, okay, for my mental health, I need to walk away.
Hmm.
But also, we've seen there's just so much understanding, I think, now of what DMO leaders need in this at this point in our careers. And a lot of it is that collaboration. It's the conversations they have. It's not necessarily the session material at a conferences that we
Right.
hear. It's the conversations, it's the
Hmm.
sidebars, it's the hey, I haven't talked to you in 5 or 6 years, or whatever that looks like. What have you been up to? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? It's those check-ins that make a lot of sense for our DMO leaders,
Hmm.
to kind of gut check. You all we it's a lot, like you said, you're getting direction from so many different people, and you're having to appease so many different people and organizations at the same time. So what path do you take? And sometimes you need your support system. You need your other DMO leaders, you need your other industry people to kind of gut check with occasionally,
Yeah.
like, how are you handling this, or how have you seen this happen? Um,
And
and
to check
creating
in with
that space.
yourself and
Yeah.
yeah, and to check in with yourself and some, personal development as well, which can be, in the way of sound healing. It could be in the way of
Right.
intention setting, vision questing. Those are the kind of things that I think we're creating spaces for, which
Right.
again, I think it's going to be something super special.
It's extremely important. And again, it's saying invest in the area that you feel like makes the most sense for you. If it's not
Hmm.
necessarily to go and spend time with yourself and spend time with your peers and do that, then do it in a travel way. Do it in a, find your space to create your own
Yeah,
wellness retreat. If it's not this, it's that. But just be cognizant of it. I think that's the message too. Be cognizant of those things that you need to do to kind of consistently, you know, work on your wellness. That's a really, really important right now.
absolutely. And coming off the Skift article piece of it too. Last piece of news from that, no big surprise, short-term rental demand is still increasing,
Oh
which I
yeah.
know has been a big debate lately whether it would be or not, coming out of the pandemic. But people, again, back to personalized vacations. You can't really get that in a hotel room, the same room you've seen since 1950. So the personalized vacation trend does not surprise me that it affects that short-term rental trend as well.
Oh, absolutely. And Airbnb has a huge campaign right now where they are directly
Mhm.
saying you want to be in this space versus a hotel. Like, this is the experience you want to have versus being in a hotel room. And there's a lot of that. I mean, I think that there's so much demand now, but there's also so much inventory. Like, there are so many more opportunities to stay in some really amazing places in so many more destinations than there were pandemic or even right after. So it's
Mhm.
really expanded. It's going to continue to be something that we deal with from an industry perspective, because you still have to take care of your hotels. That's where a lot of the funding comes in. You still have a lot of work to do with the short-term rental factor being a level of funding for a lot of DMOs. There's just so much work, and it's going to take a while to get there where we're looking at the holistic picture. But yeah,
For
I can't
sure.
imagine that ever not, and I can't imagine that anytime soon being something that we see shift.
No, it's become a new normal.
Hmm.
We talked about new normal forever, but that is definitely a new normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, there's some other pop culture tea that we kind of curated for us to talk about today, and we'll come off the wellness part, and then we'll talk TikTok. But speaking of the wellness and those pop culture things, didn't you see? Is it Hallmark doing something kind of destination hospitality
Oh my
ish?
gosh. Well, this crosses into some opportunity that we've talked about.
I love it.
I am I have to confess that I'm a little bit of a Hallmark junkie, which not a lot of people like to say, but I love cheesy, corny Hallmark movies, okay? And there's a whole group of people like me out there, okay? There's a lot of people out there.
Hmm.
And just, okay, so Hallmark is doing an experience Christmas Hallmark sort of experience in Kansas City for their first time ever this year, happening in November and December, where they're basically taking over this portion of downtown Kansas City and they're transforming it into what I would imagine to be like
Hallmark
walking into a
activation.
Hallmark Christmas movie. It is very much like, yeah, it's a very immersive experience, but they're bringing to life various aspects from different Hallmark Christmas movies, which is like that very Hallmark town feel with your
Hmm.
shops and your tree lightings and your reindeer games and like all of the corny Christmas stuff that Hallmarkies love. But they're doing it for the first time downtown Kansas City, and I feel like, obviously there's a lot of like pop culture with this, but there's also a lot of opportunity that we really haven't seen Kansas City truly take advantage of, in that this is a huge thing. Like I jumped on immediately. I went to the group on Facebook, just hopped on a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram, just started following everywhere I could, and the demand, the response, it's a frenzy. It's a frenzy about this experience. Very cool.
I
Something that
love
I think a lot of other destinations could do. Hopefully it's not just in Kansas City. Maybe they do some sort of activation in other destinations, which would be kind of cool. I know that's been this way for a long time, but you can, as a DMO, if you feel like your destination has that hallmarky vibe, that small town charm vibe, you can submit your destination to potentially be chosen for a future Hallmark production.
film location. Wow.
Yeah, so if you feel that way, and we see this all the time, especially in some of our small town areas of the DMO world, we see where people describe their holiday downtown as very Hallmark
Mhm.
vibe, Hallmark-esque. Send your
Prove it.
destination.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it in the hat. But yeah, I thought that was fun. Obviously, I have a very like my my sense
But
of
no
wanting to
doubt.
target is very personal. Like I just want to like, hey,
Absolutely.
put me in coach. Like, what can I do to help you?
You hear that, Kansas City?
Yes. Or in Hallmark, like, look, there is so much opportunity. Why did that email actually?
I love that.
I
I
did my
love that.
homework.
But
Um,
that's
yeah.
such a good little study too for tourism, because there's no doubt people who are not even into Hallmark, they still know what that Hallmark Christmas vibe is,
Oh,
and who's
yeah.
not into Christmas. So that also is smart for Hallmark to cross over to the non Hallmarky people, but also again that's going to have definitely have an increase in tourism.
Right. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love it. I love it. That's a really, really, really cool one. And so over in TikTok land, we'll talk about some non-hospitality pop culture stuff going on. I think I texted you this weekend. Um, so there's been this, and I'm the opposite of like quit TikTok because they're threatening to ban it. I'm like doubling down. I am
Doubling down.
I
Yeah.
but so there's been this kind of, Gen X became real hot on TikTok like during the pandemic because they didn't have anything to do and they got their little shtick up, and then they started kind of disappearing. So there's been this trend going on, like, where is Gen X? Like they're the reason for all these problems too. So they're calling Gen X, and then who woke up Slim Shady on Friday?
I saw
How'd
that.
they
I
call
was
it?
like, because you sent it, and you were like meant to this to y'all yesterday. And I'm like, why is Jennifer meaning to send me Eminem music videos? I had to watch the whole. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, which again is like pop culture within pop culture, because what he did so smart was, first off, they're calling out Gen X, and he's like, all right, that is me. Mic drop number one. But he weaved in so many other things too, like how we're so obsessed with. I think he was literally singing this for probably Gen X moms, because he weaved in some true crime in there anyway. Did you notice that? He called
I know.
that
I picked up on that for sure.
that Sherry Papini, which is a whole other thing that kind of went off this summer documentary wise. But yeah, and then I found out that Gen Z's big mad about Eminem coming back.
Are they? I haven't checked in with the Gen Z.
Oh,
They're not.
I did. When we were grilling yesterday, I had Houdini on repeat just to irritate them.
Oh no. I love it.
So, and I don't know how that connects back to hospitality in any way. It probably doesn't, but just like, it's interesting. It's more for me, like when I look at those things culturally, I'm like, what's it activating from a psychological generational standpoint? Because
Right. Right.
except for marketers, nobody ever really talked about generations. Like my kids certainly didn't know what generation they were in or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It was only for us in media and targeting, right? So we were really talking about generations. But now it's like a thing people talk about all the time.
It is.
My youngest said, I looked it up, and technically I'm not a Gen Alpha, I'm a Gen Z because I was born in 2012. And I'm like, no, I don't think, how do you? And she's like, yes. So like they're identifying self-wise
It's
too.
that's what I was gonna say. It's an identifier now. It's a way that you identify. And a lot of people use it like in their intro conversation, like, hey, we're on our first date, like, oh, I'm Gen Z, oh, I'm a millennial, like, how is
Like the
that
signs from the 70s, what's your
right?
sign, baby?
Exactly. And people still are asking that. Well, here's my sign. I'm an Aries. You're what, it's like but it's one of those like identifiers. Like you got to check that box so people kind of know where you fit.
And it's back to personalization, and it's back to personal brand, and our personal brand extends to our social brand. I mean, Andy Warhol, who knows why he was right that we all have our 15 minutes, because how we identify, by generation, by preferences, by the way we travel, by the way we, mother, are we a crunchy mom? And I think it's because just overall our identity, that's where our real pride comes from in a lot of ways. So I think we're learning more about ourselves, we're identifying differently for ourselves. So I think that's the only like marketing takeaway I could say from Slim Shady being back, is it's just another like generation identity thing.
It is, and it also is one of those where you feel like you find your people, right? So like
Mhm.
it pulls your people together, and you feel like you have your little something, your little
Community.
yeah, exactly. It brings a little bit of relevancy back into it. There's so many little aspects, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It was pretty fun to watch though.
I know. Oh, and also what's also big, and again, we'll go generation here, is how people are flipping out over the Beetlejuice trailers.
I'm one of the people flipping out. I was also one of the people flipping out over the Ghostbusters trailers when they came back. Not this last one, but the first one. But I wasn't as impressed with this last one. But
Yeah,
I
this last one
it
wasn't as great.
wasn't as, I don't know. Even though it was like the whole gang's I don't know. I don't know. There was something that wasn't as good as the last.
Same.
But Beetlejuice better come through. Because I'm planning like a whole thing. I am
Of
planning a whole
course you are.
and I'm gonna make my kids because I'm gonna make sure they watch the original, like they've got that thing locked down. Because that's what I did with the first Ghostbusters. I did not introduce the original Ghostbusters movies to Royce when I took him to the movies to
Yeah.
watch the reboot. And he was so lost in like who was
Because
what and
there's so
why
much.
that mattered. And he was like, what does that matter? And I'm like, oh man, I have really failed you. I really should have introduced the others. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I make my kids go back and watch everything except for John Hughes movies, which I love, but like do not age well,
Yeah, it is
you
true.
know?
It is true. Oh, I know. But yeah, Beetlejuice will be fun. And I think too, there's a seasonality aspect to the industry that is very prominent in the fall and holidays
Hmm.
because of the coolcations, going back to some of our trends that we're seeing. People don't want to travel as much in the summer because the good chunk of this of well US wise is so remarkably incredibly hot
Hmm.
and just it's very frustrating to travel in the heat these days. So coolcations, essentially where people are traveling to more northern parts of the country in the summer or planning their travel in the fall and holiday season because they don't have to deal with a whole bunch of heat, is
Hmm.
becoming more normal. So, if you can get away with like putting together some sort of itinerary in the fall that has really cool fall nostalgia added to it, and you've got the cool theater in your destination that's showing Beetlejuice, wrap it all together, like make it feel like a cool fallcation.
Yeah, or if you want to push summer travel, like focus on the indoor aspect of it. So,
Right.
even though Minneapolis and Minnesota doesn't get as hot as Phoenix, Arizona, I might still use the skywalks to go in between
Right.
things when I'm traveling just to stay comfortable. So, if you're thinking about summer travel in your destinations, think about comfort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also consider that everyone's watching the weather. Everyone kind of has a gist of, if summer travel was a big thing several years ago, but it's a lot more seasonally warm and irritating in the summer in your destination, then save a little bit of that effort and kind of adjust. We've got to adjust climate wise like we adjust for other things. But if it's easier and you have similar assets and you have some experiences that you can push a little later summer, also think about how to reallocate some of that effort and some of those funds to do
Well,
so.
we have to think year round for a lot of reasons too, not just climate change. And before it was more like, it's all summer travel and no other times, but not just from a climate standpoint, but also from a remote worker standpoint, from the fact that people are a lot more flexible. I think you do have to think,
Absolutely.
year
Nomad
round.
travel. Yeah, I have to think of too. I think the other thing to really consider is the change of schooling and how there are a lot more homeschoolers these days, especially since 2020. And also how the school districts and how various schedules are becoming different. We have schools now that are going to 4-day school weeks in certain districts to open up more long weekends. It changes that summer schedule. There's a shorter summer, but there's more breaks throughout the year. There's 2-week long breaks in fall and 3 weeks in holidays, and not as much summer. So there's so much evolving. All of that is, like you said, it's on the table.
Mhm,
Got to look at
mhm.
it from a whole annual perspective.
And I think that just like to me ties a bow around all of this being wellness and individuality and that sort of piece of it. I think it does come back to personalized travel and individualized taste and what people are identifying as in terms of their social media culture and those sort of things. I think this all comes back to, take care of the person and that'll take care of the destination,
Absolutely.
which is kind of like I'm going to tie the end of our bow around our travel and transformation think tank and retreat. One of the reasons we did that is we're taking care of the individual so they can come back and take care of the destination.
Hmm. And their people too. Their org.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining me, Kristen, on our
Thanks
first
for spilling the tea.
spilling the
We'll be back
tea.
again on Tuesday again next week to spill more tea. Obviously we're keeping up with all the trends, but if you guys have things that you want to throw in, like we always welcome
Mhm.
topics or things that you want to hear us chat about or get more into or whatever that looks like, definitely engage and let us know.
Awesome. Awesome. So now it's time for you and I. We got to get back to work.
Back to
See you,
work we
Alexa.
go. Bye.